Welcome back everyone to another deep dive review. Today, we're talking about episode 6 of Khemjira the series, and this one really slowed down the pace to focus on the emotions, tension, and that complicated, unspoken bond between Pharan and Khem. This is the kind of episode where the drama isn't about big confrontations or shocking reveals, but rather about the little details, a gesture, a glance, an overheard word, that tell us so much about where the characters stand and how their relationships are evolving. If you've been following the show closely, you'll know exactly how meaningful this episode feels, especially for fans rooting for Pharan and Khem. The episode starts with an intimate yet restrained moment. After applying ointment for Khem, Pharan, the master, quietly leaves, and Khem is left in a whirlwind of emotions. He's blushing, confused, and fighting against feelings that are slowly becoming undeniable. What makes this scene powerful is how Khem tries so hard to regulate himself. He literally pinches his thigh, slaps his cheeks, and reminds himself that Pharan is usually cold and distant, so he must not overthink the kindness. This is such a classic BL dynamic, the push and pull between vulnerability and restraint, between wanting to believe in affection but being too afraid of rejection. Khem's inner conflict is the emotional hook here, and it sets the tone for the rest of the episode. But what's even more interesting is that they weren't alone. Jet and Chan are hiding and watching from behind a jar, and they witness the whole exchange. This choice by the writers adds another layer. Now, the audience isn't just privy to Khem's private moment, so are his closest friends. Jet, who tends to be more dramatic, immediately jumps to the conclusion that Pharan definitely has feelings but hides them, and he fears he might get in trouble if Pharan finds out he encouraged Khem to move on with Pong. Chan, the calmer and more rational one, doesn't deny Pharan's possible feelings but refuses to indulge Jet's paranoia. This little side conversation matters because it confirms what many of us viewers already feel: Pharan is not indifferent. His actions, subtle as they may be, show care that goes beyond obligation. Morning comes, and the story shifts when the village chief arrives to take Pong, his son, to the hospital. There's talk about class setting an ambush to hurt Pong, with hints of magical influence clouding witnesses' memories. This subplot gives the episode its sense of mystery and tension, but for our focus on Pharan and Khem, it mainly highlights how much is going on beneath the surface. Pharan listens quietly, doesn't overreact, and responds with calm authority, showing once again why people respect him. But the quiet details matter. Pong keeps glancing around, clearly looking for Khem, wanting to say goodbye and maybe exchange contact information. Unfortunately, fate steps in. He leaves without seeing him. And here's where Pharan's subtle control comes into play. He deliberately sends Jet, Khem, and Chan out to the forest to fetch oyster mushrooms, a task that seems random at first but later reveals itself as calculated. By the time they return, Pong is gone, and Pharan has ensured that Khem won't have a chance to deepen his bond with Pong. This was such a clever piece of writing. It shows us that Pharan isn't as detached as he pretends. He's quietly watching, quietly managing, even if he doesn't openly admit to himself, let alone to Khem, why he's doing it. Jet realizes this immediately and is left speechless at the master's subtle but undeniable maneuvering. And honestly, this is one of the highlights of the episode. For anyone shipping Pharan and Khem, this confirms that there's jealousy, possessiveness, and an emotional investment that Pharan cannot hide, no matter how much he tries to mask it with logic or authority. Of course, Khem doesn't realize this at all. Instead, he regrets missing the chance to thank Pong for saving him the night before. His disappointment feels so pure and genuine, and it hurts to watch because we as viewers know Pharan is the reason for this missed connection. It creates a bittersweet dynamic. On one hand, Pharan's actions show that he cares deeply. On the other, they keep Khem in the dark and prolong his confusion. The middle section of the episode shifts into something quieter but still symbolic. Pharan asks the boys to help sort through old toys for donation. The sequence might seem ordinary, but it's layered with meaning. These toys belonged to Pharan's grandfather, and although he's kept them for years, he decides it's time to let them go. This act mirrors his own internal struggle, holding on to the past versus moving forward, detachment versus emotional vulnerability. And in this context, it reflects his relationship with Khem. Is he going to keep holding back, or will he eventually allow himself to let go of that cold distance and open up? Khem also participates in this act of giving, donating 7 out of 8 toy figures he won, keeping just one for himself. It's a small moment, but it shows us his willingness to share, to contribute, and also to hold on to a piece of memory for personal comfort. When Pharan sees Khem's contribution, he reacts with a blank expression, closing the crate quietly. It's subtle, but the scene suggests that he notices Khem's choices, and in his silence, he's perhaps reflecting on them. These are the kind of understated details that make Khemjira so compelling. The emotions are never shouted, but whispered through actions and silences. The episode closes with the donation trip to the community hall. Here, Pharan's image is highlighted strongly. He appears in a dark grey shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal his tattoos, with his amulet and bracelet, and of course, his ever-present sunglasses. It's a strong visual reminder of his identity, authoritative, spiritual, intimidating, yet undeniably attractive. The narration even explains why he wears sunglasses: sensitivity to light, but also to avoid women staring into his eyes and causing trouble. Again, it reinforces his role as someone who guards himself, not just physically but emotionally. It ties back to his guarded behavior with Khem, and we as viewers can't help but connect the dots. So, what's the takeaway from episode 6? This episode is all about the quiet war between restraint and desire. Khem is trying not to feel too much, reminding himself that Pharan is cold, but his body language betrays him. Pharan is trying to maintain control, distancing himself outwardly, but his decisions, like sending Khem away to avoid Pong, reveal a possessive undercurrent that he himself may not fully acknowledge. The writers are building this relationship brick by brick, not rushing it, but giving us layers of meaning in every interaction. For fans, this slow burn romance might feel both rewarding and frustrating. Rewarding because the subtext is so rich, and frustrating because we want confessions, clarity, and open feelings, but instead, we're given subtle hints and withheld truths. Still, that's the charm of Khemjira. It thrives on the tension, the silence, the looks that say everything words cannot. And episode 6 is a perfect example of this style of storytelling. Looking ahead, the big question is, when will Pharan finally drop the mask? How long can he continue to push Khem away while also pulling him closer in ways Khem doesn't even realize? And how long will Khem keep convincing himself not to indulge in feelings that are already so obviously there? The seeds have been planted, and episodes like this are carefully watering them, preparing for a future where these emotions will inevitably spill over. To wrap up, episode the 6th may not have had the high drama of fights or confessions, but it delivered something even more powerful: emotional clarity for the audience, if not yet for the characters. We now see Pharan's care, his subtle jealousy, and his protective instincts in action. We see Khem's growing confusion and his effort to suppress what his heart already knows. And most importantly, we see how their stories are slowly but surely being tied together. That's my full breakdown and review of Khemjira The Series Episode 6. This was a masterclass in slow burn storytelling, and I think it might be one of the most telling episodes so far for understanding Pharan and Khem's evolving relationship.